why would they didn't impure themselves?
So the Greeks, the Greeks defile the oil. Why are they defiling it? I'm sorry.
We defile the oil ourselves now.
But that's a whole other question. It's dealt with that, how they did it, how they take a menorah, and there's a menorah pure and impure, and they used wood that didn't have a receptacle. It's discussed. They get the commentaries get very creative in terms of how they actually were able to pull it off. But that's off the topic. That's off. Good. That question is addressed, but that's off the topic here. The point, but it is. It's so the point is that they were after something specific by defiling the oil, right? And furthermore, so this is apparent not only with what the Greeks did, but rather than break all the jars of oil, they intentionally defiled the oil. It's not only that, the Jews coming back into the temple, they could have lit that oil anyway, and yet they didn't. They were looking specifically for pure oil, and there was a miracle that occurred for the pure oil. We know that God doesn't perform pointless miracles. So if they can get away with lighting the menorah, if it was perfectly okay, itself was a miracle. Why would they need a miracle to find the oil? Why would that be necessary? Yes, but if they can light impure oil, why would there have to be a special miracle to find pure oil? So why would they bother looking? And why was there a miracle for them to find the oil? Beginning with the fact that they found the oil. Never mind the fact that the oil then would burn for 8 days. If they can use impure oil, so they can, maybe there's a miracle. They found the oil, very nice, we found oil. It burns after the first day, we're done. Now we're out of oil, now we'll use the impure oil. No, the oil has to burn for 8 days till they can get more pure oil. Why? What's the point? And this miracle is the miracle that they found the oil that was sealed with the seal of the high priest. So this idea is that the oil that they had found represents holiness. Holiness that is as it's kodesh mila begarmei, meaning that it's totally removed, totally beyond the natural order. That with regard to this level of holiness, which is symbolic of the pure oil, no darkness can conceal it. That not only can this not be concealed by darkness, but it actually has the power to not only not be concealed, but to actually illuminate the darkness. As we quote from the pasuk, that V'havaya yagia chashki. What does that mean? David HaMelech says, he praises God, and he says, Kiyata neiri havaya v'havaya yagia chashki. You are my candle, you are my light, O God, and God will illuminate my darkness. V'havaya yagia chashki. So the word havaya, the tetragrammaton, the central name of God, the ineffable name of God, appears twice in this verse. So Havaya, we know, is the highest, Yud Kei Vav Kei, the four-lettered name of God, and that the word Havaya, we say, in the Chassidic terminology, colloquially, we call it Havaya. Why? Because the word it's spelled Yud Kei Vav Kei. We cannot pronounce God's name, so we say Havaya, which is a scrambling of those letters. But the word Havaya also means something. So God, Yud Kei Vav Kei, is you have Elohim. The name Elohim represents God in nature. Bereshis bar Elohim, that's God as He is within nature. Then you have Havaya as God is creator, the Mahava, the emanator from which everything comes. But then you have Havaya as He's Hoya V'Iyah, as past, present, and future are the same. Meaning there's a level of Havaya as it comes to create. Then there's a level that's totally beyond that, a totally transcendent level. That's Havaya represents that transcendent level. So you have a lower level of Havaya, and then you have a higher level of Havaya, right? That represent different levels in terms of the relationship between God and creation, between creator and creation. So there's as He is creator, and then there's as the creator is Himself removed from creation. And both of these can be referred to with Havaya. So you have the higher Havaya, the lower Havaya. So in the verse where it says, where David HaMelech is praising God, so he refers to Havaya twice. He could have just said, Kiyata Neri Havaya, and he also illuminates my darkness. He's my candle who also illuminates my darkness. Why does it use the term Havaya twice? Because the first one is God is my candle. That's like reminiscent of what we talked about, the menorah in the Beis HaMikdash. Everything's great, and God illuminates my life when everything's wonderful and the sun is shining. But what about my darkness? What about that place in my life, the time in my life, the place in my character where it's dark? where there's no light, is God still my candle there? So there we say, Havaya Yagia Chashki, that God illuminates my darkness. That's how David HaMelech is praising God. And he says Havaya again. Why? Because this is a second Havaya. It's not the first Havaya that shines when it's light outside, but it's the Havaya that illuminates darkness. And it says Vahavaya with an extra Vav, because as we mentioned before about Kodesh, the letter Vav symbolizes a drawing down from above. So the higher Havaya, it's necessary to say Vahavaya, that we have to draw that in, because it's naturally removed, and you have to draw that into that darkness. So the point is that there's a level of holiness that could be concealed by darkness. Ataneri Havaya, that level could be concealed. Darkness, the Greeks can come, you have oil in the temple, and that oil can be defiled. It can become impure. So even though oil is holy and it's representing Havaya, and it's all wonderful, but that oil could be defiled by the Greeks. They could contaminate that oil. But then there's a level of oil, there's a level of holiness that's beyond that. It's munach b'chaisam shel kohen gadol. The Greek can't reach it. Darkness can't conceal it. Not only can darkness not conceal it, but it shines through the light. Darkness, it illuminates the darkness. Havaya yagia chashki, illuminates my darkness. So this idea is the Chanukah lights represent a higher level of godliness, of divine light, that can illuminate the darkness. Now we tie it all together at the end of chapter 2. This is why the mitzvah of Chanukah lights is specifically after the sun goes down. Because the point of the Chanukah lights is to illuminate darkness. This is also why the lights of Chanukah are 8, why we have 8 candles, and also why we have 8 days of Chanukah, so both 8 lights and 8 days, because as we said in chapter 1, 8 represents beyond creation, beyond Hishtalshus, beyond the natural order, beyond all of creation. And it's for this level that's beyond creation, beyond existence, that has the ability to illuminate darkness. So there's Havaya, there's a level of God as He creates the world and as He's present in the world, and that can be concealed. In the world you have good, you have evil, different forces, and the evil can conceal and cover the good, the godly. But then there's godliness that's totally transcendent, that's beyond all of creation, in which, and which creation or created force, the forces of evil, of unholiness, can't conceal it. And it's that light that the Chanukah lights seek to draw into the world to illuminate the darkness. So we've answered 2 of our questions. One question we asked in chapter 1 was, why is it that if we're trying to model Chanukah lights after the temple lights, so then we should light it at the same time? It should be lit during the daytime, right before sunset. And the second question was, why is it 8? The candles of the menorah in the Beis HaMikdash were 7. There are 7 branches. Our menorah has 8 branches. Why does it have 8? So you say, well, it has 8 because there are 8 days. But you could maybe we could figure out something else if we're modeling it after the menorah. But no, it has 8. And not only does it have 8 branches, but there are 8 days. Why? So those 2, we've answered those 2. And the point is, and this is the central point, which will also help us address and answer the other questions. The point is that the menorah, the Chanukah lights are intended, the purpose of this mitzvah is to illuminate darkness. In the Beis HaMikdash, it wasn't about illuminating darkness. There was no darkness in the world. There's obviously people had free will, there's darkness, there's idolatry, people had challenges, but you're talking about a world that was more sensitive to godliness, a world in which there was a temple, there's a Beis HaMikdash, there was divine light that was shining. So, and it's in that world that the menorah gave maybe an enhanced light, but it illuminated that was symbolic of light shining during the day. That's why in the Beis HaMikdash the menorah was lit during the day, because the entire world then was in a state of daylight. The Chanukah lights are lit specifically at night, and specifically 8, because the point of Chanukah is to illuminate darkness. The Greeks defile the oil, meaning that they conceal the holiness. Holiness that's symbolized by oil was defiled by the Greeks, but the point of Chanukah is to draw light into that darkness. How do you draw light into that darkness? By accessing a light that's not reachable by the Greeks. It's not defilable, an infallible light. A light that can is nature. Therefore we have the menorah in the Beis HaMikdash, which is in a natural world that was sensitive to godliness. You have 7 branches. The Chanukah menorah, which is intended to illuminate darkness, is 8, because in order to illuminate darkness you need something that transcends the natural order, and therefore can overwhelm and overpower and illuminate even the darkness. Okay. So that's chapter 2. Let's move on now to chapter 3. How is this relevant in our service? And in addition, not parenthetically, I mean, we discussed it a little bit now, that how in chapter 2, this idea, this concept already answers and addresses a lot of the other questions, a lot of the questions about Chanukah that you have in the commentaries. They're discussed, are already understandable in terms of the miracle of finding the oil, why it was necessary to find the oil, why it was necessary for them to light pure oil and not impure oil. I mean, all of that stuff, you can already start drawing those conclusions to why all that is. We can already find the answer to that from the Chassidic perspective based on just that point that the central idea of the Chanukah menorah is to illuminate darkness. Okay, chapter 3. The war of the Greeks was a spiritual war. This is brought famously, the Levush says this, and it's brought in Taz as well, so it's brought in Halacha, that the difference between Chanukah and Purim, one of the differences is that Chanukah is a spiritual miracle and Purim was a physical one. In Purim, the Jews were facing genocide. There was a war against the Jewish body, and Chanukah was a war against the Jewish soul. The Jews weren't facing genocide. Yeah, there was persecution, but if you were able to convert, and many did, the war was a spiritual one. It was a war against the religion, against Jewish faith. Whereas Purim, Haman wasn't concerned with the Jewish faith, he was concerned with the Jew, with the Jewish body. That's why Purim is celebrated with eating, and it's more of a physical celebration, a material celebration, because we're celebrating the victory, the miracle of the survival of the Jewish body. That's why we don't say Hallel on Purim. One of the reasons we don't say Hallel on Purim. Chanukah, where we say Hallel, and Chanukah is celebrated, at least according to many of the halachic authorities, only spiritually, to take the Jews away from, to make them forget Torah Secha, your Torah, God's Torah, La'aviram, and to take them away from Chukei Ritzenecha. What does this mean? We say in Va'alanism, the prayer that we say throughout Chanukah, that the Greeks, what did they seek to do? What were they seeking? They sought Lahashkicham Torah Secha, to make them forget your Torah. So the Friedrich Rebbe points out in his Maimer, Torah Secha, your Torah. In other words, the Greeks were very intelligent. They were very cultured. They thought they were, sort of the pinnacle of the human progressive movement, and they were very advanced and very cultured. I thought they had reached the pinnacle of human evolution, and being cultured and being intellectual, so they recognized different cultures and societies, and they were open to all of that. They saw Jews as an intelligent people, as an asset, because they're intelligent and because they emphasized study. And people that were very moral and so they embraced the Jew. What they couldn't handle was the Jewish insistence on connecting to God. That's what they couldn't handle. So it wasn't that they had a problem with Torah per se. Also, which they could appreciate and respect, they couldn't handle that it was Chukei Ritzenecha, that the Jew was fulfilling God's will, God's mitzvahs, God's commands. Within this itself, the fact that the Greeks fought against Torah mitzvahs, their main concern, their main war against the Jew was the godliness, the spirituality that's in Torah mitzvahs. This is why it says that they sought to cause the Jews to forget Torah Secha, your Torah, meaning it didn't bother them so much that the Jew will learn Torah. But they wanted that the Jew should study Torah as another intellectual pursuit. Torah is very intelligent. Even the non-Jew that doesn't study Torah can appreciate the wisdom in Torah. The whole point of their war was that the Jews should forget that it was God's Torah. To cause the Jew to forget, God forbid, that it's God's Torah. And so too, with regard to the mitzvahs, their war was against the godliness in the mitzvahs. The fact that mitzvahs are God's will. This is why in Va'alanism we say that it doesn't say that they sought to cause the Jews to stop performing mitzvahs. It says specifically Chukei Ritzenecha. What is Chukei Ritzenecha? The statutes of your will. What does that mean? Chukei dafke Ritzenecha dafke. Both chukim, statutes, and laws of shatnez, laws of kosher. These things have no rational meaning and explanation. So those are chukim. So in the mitzvahs, when it says that the Greeks sought to take us away from the mitzvahs. It doesn't say just the commandments in general. It says, Chukei Ritzeinecha, your statutes. What was their issue? Their